How many of us feel uneasy when we think about being surrounded by open water? Is it the sheer depth that gets to us, the endless blue fading into a dark and mysterious void? Or maybe it's the chilling thought of what could be lurking beneath the surface. Huge creatures or unknown dangers waiting to strike, with nowhere to run or hide. For many, sharks are the ultimate symbol of this fear. Tales like the tragedy of the USS Indianapolis and countless shipwrecks during wartime reveal a horrifying truth about the ocean. When men are left floating in open waters, vulnerable to the forces of nature, the idea of circling sharks becomes a nightmare realized. While most shark attacks are rare and exaggerated, there are three species most often involved: the bull shark, tiger shark, and great white shark. Among these, great white stand out as the most powerful and intimidating. Yet for decades, rumors have swirled of a shark far larger and more terrifying, a creature from an ancient past, defying all scientific understanding. The ocean, after all, remains vast and mostly unexplored. Fishermen, sailors, and even seasoned naval officers have shared strange accounts of encounters with what they believe to be a prehistoric predator, the Megalodon. Step into the unknown with these stories. Beyond lies a place where reality blurs with myth, and the truth is yours to uncover. This is the threshold of legend and science, a place we call the fog. Imagine floating in the middle of the ocean, nowhere to go, with the deep unknown stretching below you. The fear of being stranded like this goes beyond water. It's a universal terror of being vulnerable and exposed, whether to the elements or to creatures lurking unseen. In the peaceful coastal town of Port Stephens, New South Wales, a strange story began to spread among local fishermen. David Stead, a renowned oceanographer, traveled to the area after hearing about a bizarre and terrifying encounter at sea. When Stead arrived, he found the fishermen unusually quiet, even shaken. These were men used to the dangers of the ocean, yet they seemed reluctant to even speak about what they'd seen. After much persuasion, they shared their story. While tending to their lobster pots one morning, they spotted something massive moving below their boats. Suddenly, a colossal white shark emerged, grabbing one of their lobster cages, a meter-long wooden and steel trap, and crushing it like it was nothing. The fishermen were stunned, watching as the creature disappeared back into the depths. Over the next few days, it returned, destroying more traps before vanishing. When asked about its size, the fishermen's descriptions were shocking. Some said it was as long as 300 feet. Even by fishermen's standards, this seemed unbelievable. For comparison, the largest known animal, the blue whale, only reaches around 110 feet, while Stead doubted the size claims. He couldn't ignore the men's fear or their refusal to return to those waters. He began to wonder if they'd encountered something extraordinary, a surviving megalodon. This account, recorded in Stead's 1963 book Sharks and Rays of Australian Seas, sparked widespread interest in the idea that the megalodon might still exist. Despite scientific skepticism, the story came from a respected marine expert, lending it some credibility. The megalodon ruled the oceans millions of years ago, during the Miocene and Pliocene eras. It's believed to have gone extinct about 3.6 million years ago due to changing environments and food shortages. These sharks were enormous, with females reaching lengths of up to 60 feet, possibly more. Their massive jaws could crush bones, and they likely hunted whales and other large marine animals. But extinction doesn't always mean gone forever. The coelacanth, a fish thought to have disappeared 66 million years ago, was rediscovered alive in 1938. Could the same be true for the megalodon? The vast and unexplored depths of the ocean leave room for imagination. Nearly a decade after the Port Stevens incident, another encounter took place, this time in the Pacific Ocean. Zane Grey, a famous author and passionate fisherman, was exploring the waters around the Rangiroa Atoll in Tahiti. Grey had heard of enormous marlins in the area and set out to catch one aboard his 10-meter boat. While scanning the waves, he noticed a huge shadow gliding under the water. It surfaced briefly, revealing a shark of incredible size. Grey, who was familiar with large sea creatures, initially thought it might be a whale shark. But as he observed its square head, barnacle-covered body, and massive fins, he realized it was something entirely different. The shark was far larger than his boat, dwarfing even the largest tiger or mako sharks he'd ever seen. The locals had their own stories about such creatures. They spoke of Magu, the Lord of the Deep, a massive shark said to rule the ocean and swallow canoes whole. While Grey had dismissed these tales as myths, his encounter left him questioning what might truly be lurking in the ocean depths. But things were about to change. "Son, I'm telling you, that shark was massive. This ship's about 10 meters long, right?" "Yeah, around that." "Well, this thing was bigger. Much bigger. Are you sure it wasn't just a whale? Whales get huge too, you know." "Nope, not a whale. I know what I saw. It was a shark, no doubt about it. Sounds like something for your next book, Dad. How about the monster shark of the Pacific starring Wyatt Earp?" "Ha, that's an idea. But how would we get a sheriff out here in the middle of the ocean?" Zane Grey was overflowing with excitement after his encounter, eagerly recounting every detail to his skeptical son, Loren. At just 13, Loren wasn't buying the story. His father was a renowned storyteller, after all, and the boy figured maybe his dad had let his imagination run wild, mistaking a gentle whale shark for something more sinister. Zane, however, remained adamant. He knew what he saw, and it was no harmless whale shark. 2 days later, determined to prove his father wrong, Loren joined Zane on another trip to the same stretch of ocean. What they witnessed together would leave both of them in awe and forever change Loren's perspective. "We saw a bird circling above this big, yellow patch of water," Loren later recalled. "That patch was a shark swimming just below the surface. And my father was right. It wasn't a whale shark. How big was it?" Someone once asked him in an interview. "Big. The tail was sticking 10 feet out of the water. And you got close?" "Close enough to see it clearly." "Oh, we got close, all right." The head was as wide as a room. From head to tail, it had to be at least 50 feet long. Years later, in 1994, Loren recounted the unforgettable moment during a newspaper interview. Beneath the clear water, they saw the enormous shark his father had described, surrounded by seabirds. Its sheer size and presence were both mesmerizing and terrifying. Zane Grey detailed the encounter further in his 1931 book, Tales of Tahitian Waters. He wrote, "When the great brown tail appeared in the ship's wake, I knew at once this was no ordinary shark. The massive round head seemed at least 10 to 12 feet wide, maybe more. The entire creature, covered in yellowish barnacles, looked to be at least 40 or 50 feet long. And it was definitely not a whale shark. Whale sharks have a distinctive pattern, white and greenish spots on their skin, and much narrower heads. So, what was it? A prehistoric predator lingering in the depths of time, or something else entirely?" After this extraordinary sighting, few reports of massive sharks emerged in the following years. The ocean, vast and mysterious, rarely gives up its secrets. But decades later, in the Indian Ocean, a new story would surface, this time from U.S. Navy sailors. Another day, another horizon, just endless water, one sailor joked, gazing out from the ship's forecastle. "You act like you didn't sign up for the Navy, Another quipped, "This is what the recruiter meant by see the world." Well, he didn't say it'd all be water, the first sailor shot back. Their light banter carried on until something unusual caught their attention. A pod of dolphins had been trailing their ship for days, playfully jumping in the waves behind it. But now, their behavior changed. The dolphins broke formation, darting and leaping in every direction as though something had spooked them. "Something's wrong," one sailor muttered. "I've never seen dolphins act like that before." Then they saw it. A shadow emerged beneath the surface, growing larger as it approached. At first, they assumed it was a whale, but when the dorsal fin broke the water, their jaws dropped. The fin was massive, rising at least 10 feet above the waves. "Is that a shark?" one of the men asked, his voice trembling. As the massive predator surfaced, its head became visible. It was unmistakable. A shark, its jaws snapping shut around an unlucky dolphin. Blood tinted the water as the sailors stared in disbelief. The petty officer, a Florida native familiar with sharks, later described what he saw. It wasn't a whale. "I've seen tiger sharks and bull sharks plenty of times, but this was different. Its head was enormous, and its body was unbelievably long." The ship's sonar, designed to detect underwater objects, later recorded the creature. The sonar report estimated the animal's length at an astonishing 82 feet, well within the size range scientists theorized for the ancient Megalodon. While some speculated the reading might have been distorted by the fleeing dolphins, the sight of the shark itself was enough to leave the crew shaken. Modern science says it's unlikely. The Megalodon's extinction millions of years ago was driven by environmental changes and a loss of prey. Today's oceans, even their deepest parts like the Mariana Trench, are believed to lack the resources such a colossal predator would need to survive. And yet, stories persist. Fishermen, sailors, and explorers have all told tales of impossibly large sharks. Could the Megalodon still haunt the oceans? Or is it merely the product of human fear and imagination? Perhaps the ocean's greatest secret lies in its endless depths, waiting to be uncovered. There's always the possibility that what we think we know about extinction could be wrong. One of the most famous cases supporting the idea of the Megalodon survival comes from the HMS Challenger, a British Royal Navy vessel. During a scientific expedition in the 1870s, the ship recovered 2 large teeth from the ocean floor, teeth unmistakably belonging to the Megalodon. Fast forward to 1959, when Russian paleontologist Vladimir Chinesky shocked the scientific world. He claimed that these teeth weren't ancient relics from millions of years ago, but were much younger, dating them to 11,000 and 24,000 years old. If his calculations were correct, it would mean the Megalodon roamed the oceans at the same time early humans were transitioning from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age. However, Chinesky's findings were met with skepticism. Critics pointed out that his method, measuring the manganese dioxide coating on the teeth, could easily lead to miscalculations, often making fossils appear much younger than they truly are. So, if the Megalodon truly is extinct, what could explain the strange sightings reported by sailors and fishermen over the years? In 2003, filmmaker David Riggs joined a scientific team off the coast of Bremer Bay, Australia, to study great white sharks. The mission was simple: tag as many sharks as possible with electronic trackers. These devices, embedded harmlessly into the sharks, would provide valuable data about their movements, diving depths, and the surrounding water temperatures. Among the tagged sharks was a healthy, nearly 10-foot-long female great white. But months later, the tag washed ashore on the Australian coastline. Initially assuming it had fallen off, researchers were stunned when they analyzed the data it contained. The tracker revealed a startling sequence of events. For weeks, the shark swam steadily at a depth of around 900 feet. Then on Christmas Eve, it suddenly dove straight down at a rapid speed, eventually reaching a depth of approximately 1,900 feet. But what truly baffled the team was the temperature reading. Instead of decreasing as it sank deeper into colder waters, the temperature spiked, rising from 46 degrees Fahrenheit to a shocking 78 degrees Fahrenheit. This wasn't a natural fluctuation. The only plausible explanation, the tag, and by extension the shark, had been swallowed by something significantly larger. Something attacked and ate this great white, Riggs later said. The question on everyone's mind was, what could possibly do that? For the next 8 days, the tag recorded a consistent 78 degrees Fahrenheit as it moved between the surface and a depth of 300 feet before being expelled. The researchers concluded that a super predator, possibly a cannibalistic great white of colossal proportions, was responsible. While great whites are known to reach lengths of 16 feet, there are rare exceptions. In 2013, a massive female shark named Deep Blue was spotted near Guadalupe Island. Measuring 21 feet long, she became one of the largest great whites ever recorded. But even Deep Blue wouldn't explain what could overpower and devour a 10-foot shark so easily. With nothing but the data to rely on, the researchers could only speculate. Could this have been a larger great white, or something far more mysterious? Despite decades of exploration, the ocean still holds secrets that elude even the best scientific minds. Stories like this leave us wondering, what might still be lurking in the depths? Could the Megalodon, or something like it, still exist? For some, the answer feels closer to home. One such story comes from my own time in the military. Sharks weren't something I encountered often, but during one particular training exercise, they left an unforgettable impression. It was a Saturday at Kaneohe Bay in Hawaii. While others enjoyed their weekend, we were in the water for reconnaissance training. The task seemed straightforward enough. Fin 500 meters out to a buoy, circle it, and swim back. Simple, right? As we swam, pushing our waterproof rucksacks ahead of us, one of the guys, Jeff, suddenly froze. His face was pale, his movement stopped. I caught up to him, confused. "What's going on?" I asked. "Look down," he whispered. I slipped on my goggles and peered into the water. Beneath us, darting back and forth like shadows in the deep, was what I could only describe as a massive school of hammerhead sharks. They weren't just a handful. There were hundreds, big ones too. It felt like the water below us was alive with movement. Jeff was visibly shaken. Meanwhile, the safety officer, a staff sergeant in a kayak, paddled over to see why we had stopped. "What's the holdup?" he asked. Staff sergeant, there are sharks. A lot of them." His response was as casual as if we'd pointed out some dolphins. "Yeah, it's shark breeding season. They won't bother you. Keep swimming." Nobody had mentioned shark breeding season before we got into the water, probably because they knew we wouldn't have gone in. We had no choice but to keep swimming. Those 500 meters felt like miles as we finned toward the buoy, hoping the hammerheads were as disinterested in us as the sergeant claimed. Thankfully, they left us alone. But Jeff, in honor of the experience, got a Hawaiian-style hammerhead tattoo afterward. Let's just say, the design wasn't as intimidating as the sharks themselves. Even with modern technology and centuries of exploration, the ocean remains one of the least understood places on Earth. Stories of sharks, both known and unknown, continue to captivate us, reminding us how little we truly know about what lies beneath. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you in the next episode.